And hello there folks, I'm back from TwitchCon, which means a video has to be made. Well, I did actually head out a day early, so I was actually there on a Thursday, and TwitchCon started on a Friday. And on the first day, I hung out at the Wargaming office. Now, I couldn't take that many pictures though. Apparently, I was only allowed to take pictures of sort of the non-important things. So yeah, I just took a lot of pictures of like logos and like random artwork and stuff on the walls. So yes, Wargaming, we know you've got some secrets there. Anyways, I did get to meet a bunch of the staff. Actually, I think I met the majority of them, at least the ones that were associated with warships. So I met also robots, Ribble Rabble, met Q, and even met a bunch of the staff members who were working behind the scenes. So big hi to Nicolette if you ever happen to see this. And I promise next time I will get you in Bust a Move. Yeah, she totally kicked my ass in that video game. Anyways, they did prepare plenty of food, which was fantastic. Although, I'm not sure what happened to it afterwards, because there was so much left over. I mean, a whole bunch of us ate, and all the staff ate, I think, and there was still more than half left by the time we were all like completely full and defeated from the food. So yeah, interesting to find out what actually happened to all of it. Wonder who took it home. Anyways, and what's of course going to a convention without swag? And this was awesome because the bunch of us who went out on Thursday, we all had custom-made hoodies with with our names on the sleeve, and I absolutely fell in love with this hoodie, and I wore it through all of TwitchCon. So yeah, that was fantastic. Loved it. It was like the best thing ever. The notebooks and stuff, well, you know, they were awesome to look at, although I haven't found a use for them yet. So we'll see. At the Wargaming office, they did have these retro gaming stations, although I didn't get a chance to actually play on any of them. I think that's more for them. But I mean, when I say old, like there were some really, really old consoles over there. And I guess that's kind of what they do when they, you know, want to chill out and relax and get off the programming bit. They actually also had arcade machines that were right behind me. That included that Bust a Move machine that, you know, I got my butt kicked on. And I think they also had like Street Fighter? Or was it Marvel vs. Capcom? Couldn't remember. And pretty much around the Wargaming office, there were really nice pieces of art or artwork. This piece of art here was done by apparently one of the in-house artists. And I really liked how it was like sort of a combination of ships, tanks, and the airplanes game that most of us pretend that doesn't exist. But the artwork at least was really, really nice. I mean, this was only one piece. There was a bunch of others, but I didn't really get to take photos of them because this was taken right as we were about to leave. And of course, the most important thing was hanging out with a lot of the other streamers. So from right to left, there's me, there's Angerbeard here in the red hair, there's Sightstrafe there holding the shell in the middle, and the two console peasants. They stream like World of Tanks on the Xbox. And mind you, I tried it out. It was not easy to do. So, PC Master Race! Anyways, their names are Mad Hatter 757 and I'm Ramasama. So big shout out to you folks as well. So finally we managed to get to the hotel, which mind you, was a really nice hotel. Actually, I had a bit of a travel hiccup, so I actually checked into the hotel like hours ago, but you know, eventually arrived with the group, and a whole lot of them still had to check into the hotel. Then we ran into a bit of a hiccup. Mind you, the hotel was fantastically nice. I mean, this was the lobby area. It was being renovated at the time, so I couldn't get a full shot, but yeah, it was beautiful. So anyways, back to the hiccup thing. So there was a bit of a hiccup, and what happened was we were treated to drinks on the 46th floor of the hotel, which provided a freaking beautiful view of the city at night. Now, San Francisco, I think, honestly looked better at night than during the day. I don't know. I just thought at night it was like, oh, that's really nice, and then during the day it was like, Anyways, and then this was like the 46th floor. This is a place called the Cityscape apparently, and so we came up here for drinks. And I did take a short video of what it looked like from where I was sitting. So this is like a quick shot of, yeah, the city. It's kind of awesome to see this at night though. And that pretty much was the end of the very first day, which was fantastic. But of course, day 2 came around, and day 2 was TwitchCon itself. Now, mind you, this was the first inaugural TwitchCon, so the first one ever, so there are probably gonna be some growing pains. I guess my biggest concern with it was the fact that TwitchCon was pretty darn small. So, I mean, this is me walking through the main exhibition floor, so this is where all the companies were hanging out, the merchandise line was, and a bunch of stuff. I mean, they had another floor on top, a second floor, where they were doing like a gaming lab and stuff, but overall, TwitchCon seemed, kind of small. It was nice in the sense that because it was so small, you got to hang out with people and talk to them and chat. And there's no rush to get anywhere because you can simply go through everything in such a short period of time. So tag along here, and I'm going to walk you through essentially the main exhibition floor, which had like the main stage, which we just passed. There was an Intel booth, although wasn't really sure what the Intel booth really did. I think they were trying to showcase some of their technology with their chips and stuff, but I don't know. I walked by it and like talked to them and didn't really know what they were all about. And then of course there was this game called Paladins, which was, it would look like an FPS but with like fantasy elements and stuff like that. I mean, it was a really cool game. I watched people play and it seemed like a really interesting game. Speaking of which, if you guys are actually interested in signing up for early access for the game, I do have, I think, 4 codes for this particular game, and I'm probably going to post these in the video description below, so if you can get there and grab them and redeem them at like www.paladins.com, you can redeem these early access codes and get yourself into the game whenever it does come out for early access. Finally, we do come up to the actual Wargaming booth itself, and they managed to bring in a Hummer, which had like a bunch of Razer laptops there, and people were able to play World of Tanks, World of Warships, and they had like an Xbox set up there as well for people to try out World of Tanks. Oh, by the way, hi, also Robots. He's the guy who just walked into the closed room there. So yeah, this is the Wargaming booth. It wasn't exactly the biggest booth, which was, I guess, a little bit surprising considering they were like one of the major sponsors of TwitchCon. So yeah, I kind of figured they might have had a bigger booth. But anyways, I mean, it was still cool nonetheless. That over there, that person over there in the purple hair, or yeah, it's purple hair. Yep, that's Primrose. She's one of the Warship streamers as well. So then on this side, there was a lot of these like indie developers, and they had some merchandise people for like different like smaller merchandising companies and stuff like that. And that was this part of the thing. It was kind of, I don't know, there was people there, but it felt a little bit barren almost. And then of course there was like the crazy part of TwitchCon, which was this particular merchandise line. Now, I took this footage on the second day. On the first day, this merchandise line ran forever. I think there were people who stood in line for something like 6 hours to buy themselves a TwitchCon like t-shirt or something, and I was just like, I don't know, I would like actually to do that, because 6 hours in line to wait for something was just insane, utterly insane. And as you can tell, there are people here who were still waiting. I mean, they cut off the line or something to, I guess, figure out if they could actually process all the people for the close of the actual convention, but the line would just keep going forever. A couple of other video game developers here and there. I guess, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really check out these games. They didn't really interest me all that much. So behind, sort of the major game studios, there were a couple of these not so major ones. And then there was a small section over here for the hardware makers. So like Corsair had its own booth. I think Sound Blaster, I guess those guys would be from Creative. They had their own booth. Blue had their own booth, so these are the microphone and headphone people. I actually use a Blue microphone, and yeah, I mean, I talked to them, and they had some pretty nice stuff, I guess. Stuff was expensive, but was nice. And then, yeah, I mean, like, you can tell, it was not the most, guess, it wasn't like the biggest convention. ArenaNet, I think. These are the guys who do Guild Wars 2. They had a nice booth set up here. And I guess they were doing like, interviews and stuff for them. Alienware brought a truck. Very, very, very flashy truck. Lots of very pretty lights. Like, lots of really pretty lights, mind you. And yeah, that was actually really cool. I liked their truck. So there was still a thing there. Wargaming Hummer or Alienware truck? Interesting little debate there. And that's pretty much it on the main exhibition floor. We're right back to pretty much the entrance. Oh, Razer had their own booth as well. They had a booth over there as well as like their own broadcaster zone, which is cool. And yeah, and that was it. So like the Razer guys, they did their thing, and then we're right back at pretty much where the main stage is already. And that was the main exhibition hall for TwitchCon. It wasn't very big, but at the same time, the flip side and the positive parts of being not very big is that there wasn't ever a rush to get anywhere really fast. Like you weren't rushing around to try to catch everything. Had plenty of time to just hang around, talk to people, interact with people, which I thought was the really nice thing about TwitchCon, was just being able to hang with people and chat and interact. And I guess that was the main purpose of TwitchCon, or so I hope. Anyways, that night was awesome because we managed to get to the World of Warships launch party. And mind you, Wargaming knew how to throw a party. I mean, it was fantastic. They brought in like the swing band here, so they were like singing. There was very nice music. We had at one point dancers as well. I did take a photo of them, but they're kind of blurred because, you know, they are moving around and my camera apparently doesn't like too much motion. So, but you know, still was really nice, very classy. They had these nice ice sculptures. This one was a warship carved out of ice, which I thought looked phenomenal. And of course, it's always going to be about one thing for me, which is I go to something and there's got to be food. And yeah, the food at the launch party was awesome. There was like these sandwiches. These were like small sandwiches, and I had like a whole bunch of them because they were great. There was these like wedges, potato wedges. They tasted really good. I think there was like one item, I think in total, that I wasn't really sure what it was. But then again, it's food, and it was great because you're going to hear me complain about food in a little bit when I was talking about the Twitch after party, which is at the end of day 3. But anyways, so, you know, the food was great. And for people who like to drink, there were really cool things like this thing. This was like an ice logo for World of Warships, and you pour drinks through it. Now, since I didn't drink, this kind of, yeah, I mean, I didn't drink, so I kind of missed out on the fun there. But people who did have it said it was great. Now, in the basement here, that's where the logo is, by the way. You can tell that sort of like there. It's a shiny little thing. That's, yeah, never mind. Okay, anyway, so this was the basement, and people kind of hung out here, chatted, and you could play World of Warships, and like a couple computers projected onto these nice big screens. And so I had some fun playing on the computer. I think I did like 3 or 4 battles. Hung out with Mijash, Primrose, who were here as well, and managed to get a picture with them. So, yep. Hi Prim, hi Josh, in case you guys ever watched this video. And that was pretty much the night. We played Warships, we chatted, and we hung out. Day 3, I found out, hey, wait a minute. Partners, Twitch partners, can get a badge that looked different from the regular tickets. So I went ahead and I got myself a partner badge. And the minute I got this badge, I started talking to like other people, like companies and, you know, other streamers. They looked at the badge and they kind of treated you a little differently, which is kind of cool. But the partner badge also gave you VIP tickets to the TwitchCon after party. So I was like, woohoo, you know, like another party. Maybe they have food. Yeah, I was about to be disappointed. Because I went to this, which was cool because you had your own entrance and everything, and had like a whole section that's like, you know, designated VIP and stuff. But the only thing they had was an open bar. And so you could get drinks. Now, since I didn't really eat that much for lunch, yeah, and I don't really drink, so kind of going there was a little bit meh. So I pretty much spent my time getting drinks for Primrose. Yeah, I became like her, what do you call that? A butler. There you go. I went and got her drinks all the time. So eventually, at like 1 o'clock in the morning, I was like, ugh, you know, I'm hungry. You know, it's only been drinks. They did have a gaming lounge, by the way, and they were playing a game called Paladin. So, you know, again, mentioned earlier, if you want a code, there's only 4. I've only got 4 of them. It's an early access code. Video description below. You can grab a code for yourself. But anyways, at like 1 o'clock in the morning, I was like, yeah, okay, you know what? I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm going to go back to the hotel, and I'm going to order pizza. Pizza cost $25 for a medium pizza, and it took an hour and a half to deliver. So yeah, I ended up at a hotel eating pizza at like 2:30 in the morning. It was totally not great. And then of course I had to get up real early the next day, got on the plane, got back to Toronto, and of course that wraps up TwitchCon for me. And let's get to some warship news, and let's see what's been going on lately. Actually, there was one thing I kind of forgot to talk about, which is I did provide some feedback to the producers of the game about the state of warships, and I'm pretty sure I remember talking about carriers, destroyers, and God, what else did I talk about? I talked about a couple of things, and I did mention, the concerns that some of you have raised. I didn't get a chance to give them like complete feedback on everything because there just wasn't enough time. But I did manage to get some contact info from the people at Wargaming, so hopefully in the next little while I'll be able to send them some more feedback, and hopefully that brings about some additional changes. We'll have to see about that though, because at the end of the day they still have control of their own game and they know which direction they want to take it. So the best I can do is send them some feedback and hope for the best. Now, the biggest piece of news that's come out in the last little while seems to be the release of the soon-to-be release of the German cruisers and the Russian destroyers, as well as one lone Polish destroyer. So, what do I think about that? Well, the German cruisers, when I look at them, they appear to be an interesting mix almost of the US and Japanese cruisers in a way. You've got, for example, nice long-range guns. And when I say long-range, I mean with the range mod, I think the German cruisers can hit, at least at the later tiers, up to 20-kilometer range on their guns, which is quite awesome because that's going to allow them to basically poke at battleships at long range with cruisers, which means more fires, perhaps. So that might suggest that the German cruisers are going to be more hanging with the fleet. Instead of maybe conducting independent cruiser actions, maybe just sticking together with the fleet and providing additional fires and stuff from longer range. So that's actually very, very interesting. And not only that, but the German cruisers also get torpedoes. While not as many torpedoes as, say, the Japanese cruisers, it certainly gives them more flexibility than the US cruisers, because it's going to give the German cruisers at least the ability to engage heavier targets up close and actually be able to deal with them, compared to, say, a US cruiser where if you do get close to like a battleship, it's pretty much game over. So that actually is very, very interesting, and I'm looking forward to trying out the German cruisers. In fact, that actually might be the next line of ships that I decide to level up. But the Russian destroyers, oh man, what do I say about those things? I think the whole term that I used before, where I said strong Russian destroyer, is going to be a thing. Like, I really think it's going to be a thing now, because the Russian destroyers, they do have weak torpedo armament, which is, kind of to be expected, but the guns on those Russian destroyers are no joke at all. They're extremely nice guns. They're a good rate of fire, and at the later tiers, their traverse is really nice, but most importantly, I think, about the Russian destroyers is their speed. If you look at the tier 9, tier 10 Russian destroyers, and you factor in the speed boost plus the speed flag, I think the Russian destroyers are going to be able to run close to 50 knots. And there are not really that many ships in the game that are going to get anywhere close to that kind of speed, so that brings out some very interesting gameplay sort of ideas, almost like how that's going to work, because you're going to have these destroyers that are so fast that they can really slip behind the enemy lines. They're really going to be able to run down carriers. Like, as a carrier, if you think you can outrun stuff now, which you can, I think you're going to have a real problem trying to outrun destroyers that are zipping around at 50 knots, which means that the Russian destroyers, also with their supposedly weaker and shorter range torpedoes, might not suffer so much, because at that kind of speed, you're going to be able to close down people so much faster. Think about it this way: if you have your bow to another ship's bow and you've got the speed boost activated and you're going close to 50 knots, your closure speed is 80 knots if you're running up against another ship that's going at 30 knots, which means that's just insane. I mean, the amount of distance you're going to be able to close to get within torpedo strike range is not that long. So that is actually a very, very interesting destroyer line, and I feel like, just like, I mean, I haven't obviously played them in battle and I haven't tried them in battle, but the feeling right now is those things are going to be really, really strong. And the big worry for me is what's going to happen to all the US destroyers, because if the Russian destroyers basically become anti-destroyer everything, what's the role for the US ones? Because their main advantage were their guns, and now all of a sudden they're going to get sort of outclassed. So I'm interested to see what happens with the American destroyers after the Russian destroyers come out, and to see what kind of things can be done to make them actually feasible ships to play. Alright, and so of course finally, the Polish destroyer. And the Polish destroyer, well, not exactly amazing by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's a decent ship judging from what I've seen so far, but the fun part for me about the Polish ship is the fact that it's a Polish ship, and that it's a minor naval power that's got a ship in the game, which is very interesting because that means that potentially we would be starting to see ships from lesser navies. So maybe we'll see a Dutch battlecruiser, maybe we'll see a Swedish ship in here somewhere. So it's actually very interesting because that means that wargaming is open to that kind of potential, the potential to bring in ships from not major navies, and you're gonna see it pop into the game, which would be really cool because maybe that's what we'll end up having, is that we'll have an other nation's tech tree, filled with ships from other countries. But this is not going to be a Sail and Chat episode, if I don't answer any questions. So let me answer as many questions as I can in the time that I have remaining. First up, question from Duros Clap, who's wondering, is there anything that wargaming can do to make the US cruiser line more entertaining, interesting to play? Because Duros has gotten to tier 8 on both the US and IGN lines and has found the IGN cruisers are infinitely more entertaining to play. They have the 203s a little bit earlier, they've got their faster cruisers, they've got those torpedoes, and the USN doesn't have anything except for AA. And Duros, first of all, I agree with you, because now that we know what the German cruisers are going to look like, I worry about the USN cruisers as well, because it almost feels like aside from AA, they've got nothing else really going for them. Their guns aren't particularly great, their rate of fire is kind of meh, their range is kind of meh, and they don't really have any kind of that entertainment value that other classes might have. They used to be great, but nowadays not so much. So what I think is what I'll do is I will send this feedback along and maybe see if they're willing to change anything. I don't know, because right now they've obviously started working on new tech tree lines and things like that, and I have a feeling that some of the original tech tree lines are going to kind of be neglected a little bit. But we'll have to see, because the USN cruisers eventually are going to get into a situation where people aren't really going to play them, because they're going to be either playing maybe the Germans or the Japanese cruiser lines. So we'll have to see. I mean, personally, I would say that maybe a buff to the rate of fire, maybe a better arc, maybe better high explosive and armor piercing, or just better armor piercing shells might be the thing for the US cruisers. I don't know. It's just things that I'm thinking about. Now, next question comes from Kev Chen, who's asking about the introduction of the Akizuki class to play sort of the Cleveland role, but as a destroyer. Interesting question, Kev. Although the higher tier US destroyers already play this role, although nobody really plays it. The high tier US destroyers have the ability to equip the defensive fire ability, and that allows them to pretty much stick really close to carriers or battleships, and then at the last possible second activate their area of ability and just knock down planes, or at least disrupt them enough so the damage is mitigated. However, with most destroyer captains, they're more interested in having the speed boost to keep themselves nice and fast and to allow themselves to sort of zip around, that they don't really make use of it. Although I think that with clan wars in the future, we're going to see these defensive A sort of destroyers being used on a more frequent basis, shall we say. Michael comments that I hate how all these contests seem to be NA only. How about some love for us EU players? Well, Mark, with regards to how Wargaming does their contests and how it's like NA, EU, and how it's all different and stuff, it's not really anything I can do about that. I mean, that's kind of how Wargaming does it. If you got issues, send them a support ticket and complain about it. But at least when I do giveaways and contests and everything like that, I tend to open it to everybody from all servers, which does mean that on occasion, I kind of get killed by shipping costs, mind you. Like, damn. Shipping something across the world is it's a pricey proposition sometimes. But anyways, I mean, I think probably the best thing that you can do is probably just send in a support ticket and talk to their support and just say, look, I wish more of the contests and stuff were for Europe and not just NA, and maybe see if they can give you a decent reply. Starlord asks, do I feel like the Colorado should get a considerable buff? Because even in the final hull and all the upgrades, most Nagato or even Fuso players can take a Colorado. Interesting question, because the Colorado has been buffed a little bit recently. Its rate of fire has improved and its turret traverse has improved. However, I do find that the Colorado's HP is way too low for tier 7 battleship. It's almost like you take one good salvo from a battleship and there's a third of your HP gone. There's almost no real way to counteract that. So I think the Colorado's one and only buff that it could get is maybe like a 10,000 HP buff, like maybe up to 60,000 HP. So it's not like 15,000 HP short of a Nagato. I found that if you take a Colorado into a ranked battle and there's a Nagato, you're at a disadvantage. The Nagato has pretty much all the advantages, and that's rough. That is really rough when you're actually playing competitively in a ranked battle. Okay, as competitive as a ranked battle can be in its current state. Surya asked, or actually said, sorry, you did an excellent video some time ago about how to play USN cruisers. I still go back and watch it from time to time. Are you thinking about doing one for some other lines of ships, for example, IJN cruisers? I'm actually thinking about redoing the USN cruisers as well, because the USN cruisers have been changed so much since the last time I made that video. So I'm actually thinking that most likely what I'll end up doing is redoing the US cruisers and then probably just, doing the Japanese cruisers and so on and so forth. Although I do find it difficult because I don't actually have all those ships yet. So as I get more ships and more tech trees researched and everything, I guess I'll do a video for that as well. So do keep an eye open for Syria. I mean, I'll do the best I can to try to get as many of those videos out as possible, but as with things, I've got to actually level them first. I don't have a press account per se. Alright, so we're moving on to our very next question, which comes in from Vice Admiral Dusty Attenborough. First of all, wicked name. I've got to kind of got to ask, where did that name come from? Because, I mean, wasn't there a very famous nature guy called Attenborough too? Can't remember. So, actually would like to know where that name came from. So anyways, Dusty says, in his humble opinion, my channel and videos are fantastic. He's been following since closed alpha. Well, thank you. But believes that I should just keep waiting a little bit and just make videos for fun and so on and so forth, and sort of let the game catch up. Yeah, you know what, Dusty, I do think that that's what I'm actually doing, is just making videos and waiting for the game to catch up a little bit and seeing how that goes. Although for things like the Know Your Ship series, I do think that for the amount of time that I commit to those, I do think I need to actually fund myself a little bit, because those are very time consuming videos that right now generates very little for me. So most likely I will kind of be setting up a Patreon account that people have said that that they would support me on. So that might be something, and I'll just try to do like one a month or something like that, and we'll see how that goes. I haven't figured out all the details yet, and I will probably eventually work it out, and in the next little while probably set it all up. Anyways, our last question of this episode comes from War Master Chief, who is saying that maybe I should raise the issue of the disparity between tier 10 battleships up with wargaming. War Master Chief, I'm pretty sure I did that when I was there, although I can't really remember because I talked to so many people about so many things. But now that I'm actually reminded about it, I will try to go and contact one of the staff again and kind of point their attention to this specific thread and to the specific issue. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, they've obviously got their own ideas and stuff, but if I can maybe point it out, they'll maybe look into it in a little bit more detail. Anyways, folks, that's the end of this week's Sail and Chat episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any questions and whatnot, please submit it in the video description below, and I will try to answer it in the next episode. Aside from all that, I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the high seas.